Hello and welcome to another episode of I'm Your Biggest Fan, the podcast that chats to your favourite artists about their favourite artists. I'm your host Jazmin L'Amy in conjunction with the Noizze podcast network and sponsored by Satanic Tico. Today on my podcast episode we are chatting about a band whose name I have seen everywhere. I feel like all of the guitar and music nerds will be hating me right now for the fact it's taking me so freaking long to check this band out. The band we're talking about today is Dillinger Escape Plan. And the person who is talking about it today is John Bailey, guitarist of the tech metal band Utopia. They released their debut album in 2021 on APF Records. The next album, Shame, by the time I'd recorded this, was due to come out on the 2nd of February, which was a self-release. So by the time this comes out, it will be out in the ether for you to go and check out. They are a combination of tech, grind, death metal, doom, jazz, and so much more. We talk about John having the Dillinger Escape Plan drummer on their debut album, asking Dillinger's guitarist to headbutt him after a live show, the correlation between technical metal and jazz, and the best Dillinger Escape Plan lyric. So once again, sit back, relax, grab yourself a cup of tea like I have, and enjoy some musical nerdiness. So I'm not sure how much you have been told before doing this interview, but the whole premise of this podcast is basically, I find that in today's day and age of social media, fans find it really easy to access the bands they listen to. Mm-hmm. And quite often they forget that their favorite bands just started out as fans of music themselves. And going through album cycles and tour cycles, I imagine you get the same rehashed questions day in, day out. So this is an opportunity for you to forget about being in a band for now and just put down that veil, break down that wall, and reminisce on the one band that got you on this path in the first place.
Yeah. Oh, man, that is really... That's a very difficult question.
Well, I've been told that the band you want to talk about is Dillinger Escape Plan.
I think that would be a fair compromise of all the various things, yeah.
Yeah, it's a big question to ask, who is your favourite band? But
No, I think Dillinger would be the starting point. They were kind of, I guess, the junction off which a lot of other things kind of happened. So in terms of like influential in the sense that they sort of were the catalyst for the most amount of change musically within me.
Yeah.
That would be, yeah, I guess that would be Dillinger.
Cool. So take me from the beginning then, because you said Dillinger, like you got into a little after a couple of other things. So what were the bands you were listening to before Dillinger came along?
Oh, well, I suppose the first, I mean, I don't know how far we want to go back, but I guess the first album that was kind of alternative or just not like mainstream pop, you know, like the now 24 and now 25. We just used to get that and listen to the radio, me and my sister, and like listen to whatever. And I remember being in a record shop in Wales, in Bangor, with my parents and my sister when I was like, I don't know, 10, 11. And there was, I think it was a Meatloaf out. I think it might have been Bat Out of Hell.
Cool.
Yeah, I think it
quintessential.
Absolutely, I think it was that. Anyway, so I got that, and then it was kind of got me a bit more into this alternative thing. And then straight after that, my friend, who was just playing guitar, I really liked playing guitar back then. So I've been playing guitar since I was 6. But then when I was in high school, maybe 12 or 13, my friend was really into Green Day, and I'd never heard him. And he lent me Dookie, and then I was just I still am like a massive Green Day fan. Really love Green Day, and obviously from Green Day I went way into way more obscure or underground types of punk, grindcore, whatever it might be. But Green Day really, I've absolutely got to give them a shout there, because that was incredibly formative in terms of guitar technique and palm muting. Trying to get palm muting, that was like learning Basket Case and learning all of Dookie and all of Nimrod and all of Insomniac, was basically where I got a lot of my early like facility as a guitarist, as a musician. Probably listen to Green Day. After Green Day, that was like buying Kerrang then, and Metal Hammer, and later Terrorizer, and then from Kerrang, Alice in Chains and Faith No More, massive, as big as Dillinger, really, Faith No More. And Soundgarden, loads of grunge, but very specific things. I never really I always kind of got an album like Dirt by Alice in Chains, and then just got obsessed with that. Yeah. And just got obsessed with it. And I couldn't listen to any other albums by them, because I thought, I'm still like that. I'm still just like, this album is so good that I don't want to be disappointed if I listen to another one.
Yeah.
And I'm so like connected to this album that, I'd listen to it loads, but then another album would come in, like King for a Day by Faith No More, and I'd be like, oh my God, this is completely blown my mind for another few months. And again, I didn't really want to listen to anything else. I guess I did expand out to like Angel Dust became my favorite Faith No More album, and blah blah blah. So that was all like high school. Also like Marilyn Manson and Cold Chamber and like weird stuff that was like freaky as when you were younger. And so anyway, so then I went to college and discovered a couple of mates there, Ben Green, Josh Blinkhorn, and they were really into Converge, Agoraphobic Nosebleed, Dillinger, Curl Up and Die, Canderia, some other, just loads of really heavy, and hip-hop, loads of hip-hop, Far Side, Cannibal Ox, Firelife Cypher, loads of different things. And that really like diversified my music taste. And I guess entered Dillinger at that point, really, in Calculating Infinity, and that was just totally satisfied like all of my musical things that I wanted out of an album. The step before that would have been Adrenaline by Deftones. That also remains like one of my favorite albums of all time. Just really brutally super violent, aggressive, dark but melodic, kind of like emotional albums that were just totally serious. There was nothing was fun about it. It was just, this is horrible, and really,
it's just audible depression.
Exactly. So I could immediately relate to that. I was like, yeah, this completely is the sound that like, I could completely get with it. Yeah, so those kind of bands, and then onto Dillinger. So yeah, that's a bit about the bands that came before.
So you mentioned there that you were introduced to Dillinger whilst you were in college by your college friends, and you mentioned there that it was the album Calculating Infinity. Was it the whole album you were introduced to, or do you remember the first song you heard from them?
Yeah. In fact, it was the same experience as discovering Steely Dan for the first time, which was like the first track on the first album that I heard that someone played me. I just went, Jesus Christ. Yeah, that's amazing. That's so good. And then you listen to the full album because you just go, fucking hell, that's ridiculous. And then the album finishes and you go, yeah, that's immediately just going to be one of my favorite albums ever. I only need one listen. That's incredible.
Yeah.
And then you go back and obviously like for years you listen to it forever. And it was the Steely Dan album, Countdown to Ecstasy, I think, that starts with Bodhisattva, and that was one of the first. That was the first song I heard, and again, I just thought, yeah. And the intro to Calculating Infinity is so bonkers in its own right. It's just it must be 3 seconds long, and I was like, yeah, 3 seconds. That's all I need.
That's all you need.
I'm in for the rest of the album. So, and then I think that would be the main one because it's kind of got elements of all the things that I love about Dillinger. It's really violent. It's really technically accomplished. It's super creative. Yeah, and it kind of paints a picture, you know, when I listen to it. It's just very, it's kind of very visual music, even though it's sound. It's just it paints a picture for me. And then that was obviously the next track on the album, 43% Burn, just picked up in a really weird. I think that riff just set up so many bands for 43% Burn. It just set up so many bands' sounds after that. So that was the second song on the album, 43% Burn. But no, yeah, Sugarcoated Sour was the one that really got me into it.
Okay, it's interesting there then, because you've mentioned that from the music you were listening to before, be that Green Day, Faith No More, Meatloaf, Coal Chamber, what was it about Dillinger that was just so immensely different from all the other bands you'd heard up until that point? Like, what was it about them that just no other band can match up to?
The technical element of it, that just how hard it is, you know, the Green Day, Coal Chamber, Marilyn Manson, Faith No More, all of those other bands is quite easy, quite, I don't know, that's not the right word, easy or straightforward.
Formulaic?
Formulaic or just they move quite slowly, you know. They're just riffs that I can hear them straight away and pretty much go straight to it straight away and go, that's what that is. Dillinger is like, what the fuck was that? And then
it's like a brain workout. Yeah,
and then you got like 20 minutes of going, I'm gonna have to slow that down and figure out exactly what was going on in the guitar there. And then you listen to it and you go, oh wow, that's really interesting. And then another 5 seconds go by and you go, hang on, what was that again? I'm gonna have to stop and slow it down. I think it was so many ideas all at once, which is what the you know, in Utopia, that's kind of a thing that I guess came from Dillinger. It's just completely bombarding people with music ideas that hopefully are interesting, you know, to listen to. And every time you listen to it, you go, well, I didn't hear that before. I didn't hear that. And do you know what? The same can be said for Faith No More. You listen to it and I go, I didn't hear that the first time I listened to it. But it's a different, I don't know, it just feels different somehow with very complicated music. There is just more of it. There's a bigger note count. You know, if there's 1,000 notes on a Faith No More album, there's 100,000 notes on a Dillinger album or whatever.
Yeah.
So, and I just love, there's like a common thing. I think Mike Patton did the EP with Dillinger, Irene Is a Dead Scene, the singer from Faith No More. That's another one of my favourite recordings. And I just think Mike Patton would have been an amazing constant vocalist for Dillinger to have had. That would have been so good.
Yeah. It's interesting there that you mentioned that. So one of the things I love doing about these interviews is that it forces me to finally listen to a load of bands, names that I've seen, but I've not taken the time to listen to. And Dillinger is one of them. Like, I see that band name all the time. I work in the music industry as well, so a lot of people are throwing that name around a lot. And I've never just sat down and listened to them. So I did for this interview, obviously, and I did a bit of research as well. And it's interesting that you mentioned Alice in Chains and Faith No More earlier on, because I also read that Mike Patton had been on one of their EPs.
Yeah.
So when that came about, having already been a fan of Faith No More and a fan of Dillinger, do you remember hearing that was going to happen? Do you remember hearing that EP for the first time?
Yeah. I don't know if it was, let me think. See, I'm rubbish historically. I don't know when things like that will have happened. So was that after Calculated Infinity, in between that and Miss Machine? Maybe, I guess, before they got Greg in on the vocals. Maybe it was around that time. So
somewhere between 1999 and 2004.
Yeah, I think so, actually, because I started uni in 2003. And yeah, it was probably in the second year that album came out, 2004. So yeah, that probably makes sense, somewhere around there. My kind of like chronology of stuff is terrible. It's kind of because it's like I say, I don't kind of what's the word, like fanboy about bands as individuals that much. It's more like the creation there. The album is the world, and that's all I'm really interested in. Like the details, I'm just not really interested in. I just listen to the music and that's it. And then I'm really rubbish with who was in at what point and when things were released. But I do remember because there was me and Reese from Utopia who sings, and 4 other guys. We just lived in a house in Preston when we were all at uni, and we used to constantly listen to music all the time. Just and it'd be again, it was just all sorts, but that was really on rotation for a long time, particularly the 4th track, When Good Dogs Do Bad Things. There's just amazing lyrics in that. It's got my favourite lyric in this crowded. I think the lyric is, in this crowded place you can swing a cat and not even hit a soul, just a lonely vacuum of human black holes.
Oof. Oh, I felt that.
Wow, it's just so like. When, and especially where it comes in the song, it's so intense. It's just like, understand that. Absolutely understand that. That was good.
Yeah. So when that EP dropped, and it was like 2 of your favorite bands basically collaborating.
Yeah.
Were you just like, of all the guest vocalists on this EP, Mike Patton, what a great choice.
Yeah, I was. I just thought that's so cool. That is ace. And there's an Aphex cover on it as well. Come to Daddy's on that. Hollywood Squares. I think there's only another one. I can't remember what the other one's called, but yeah, it just made absolute sense. And I'd not really heard, other than bits of Mr. Bungle, maybe some Phantomas, Tomahawk. I'd never heard him do stuff as aggressive as he was doing on that. Really, he just brought it all together. I kind of Miss Machine, when Miss Machine came out, the one after that, I bought that and listened to it and obviously loved it, but I didn't love it as much as the stuff before it. Some of the aggression and some of the violence had gone out of it.
Bit more too polished, I guess.
It was very polished, and that's okay. And I've got no real issue with that as a thing. It just didn't hit me as hard as the other ones did. I think maybe also because I'd also heard, since I first discovered Dillinger, I'd also heard loads of stuff that was way more brutal than Dillinger, way more horrible, like Origin or like Cryptopsy or Agoraphobic Nosebleed or Jane Doe by Converge, things like that were just really brutally like, not as technical, but just horrible. And so when that's all added into the mix, and really before that, it's like, Faith No More, a little bit of Converge, a little bit of this, but then Dillinger. When you then immerse yourself in grindcore, that sort of softens you to aggressive things. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I get that.
So yeah, I mean, Miss Machine, and then everything after. So I've kind of I've probably took 15 years of not listening to Dillinger at all, really, and then went back and got into One of Us Is the Killer a few years ago, and I really enjoyed that. But I had a kind of different head on, 15 years later.
You're in a different place in your life.
Yeah. I think the thing with Dillinger was that, I mean, when I said that they were a junction point, I mean, when people started using the word jazz, that was then my gateway into only playing jazz for 15 years. Like I stopped playing anything else.
Okay.
I wasn't on the metal scene at all. I was, and still am, really just playing jazz all the time. So after uni, I mean, while I was in uni, I heard Dillinger, blah, 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 heard some other names battered around by a mate of mine, Baldy, who is Matt Baldwinson, who's in Tangaroa, who were a Leeds band back then, now in Dream Troll. And Matt and Rob Hobson, who's in Executive Distraction Tax, talk about Alan Holdsworth. And I was like, Alan Holdsworth? Man, that doesn't sound very metal, but let's have a listen to Alan Holdsworth. And it was like, oh my God, what is this guy? What is this guy doing? And it was like Jazz Fusion is a guitarist, but just from another planet.
Yeah.
And then I sort of just kind of got out of metal and didn't get out of it, just went in a different direction. And so the majority of my musicality is jazz based, and that comes from I did my masters in jazz at Leeds, and then just did albums and did other people's albums and gigged on that scene, and then I don't know. I didn't think that I would not going to go back to metal. I just thought I've got so much to learn here in jazz that if I am going to go back to metal, I want it to have some DNA of jazz in it, because it's complex. That's the complexity that I'm hearing in Dillinger. I think that's what those sounds are that I can't get my head around, and so I need to really understand that. And then got totally distracted by that for well over a decade, and then came back and did Utopia when I thought, oh, maybe now's a good time to do that.
Now you can apply that knowledge that you've learned.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That was
amazing. So tell me, when did Utopia kind of begin? Because I want to know, if there have been parts of when you first started writing music, when it was more jazz based, if you were influenced by Dillinger, and how Dillinger now influences your writing in Utopia.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, so when we were in uni, me, Reese, and Graham, so there's me on guitar, Reese screaming, Graham was a drummer we lived with. We go down into the basement of the house and we played Will Haven style sludgy doom. And then we all started to get a bit better. Graham learned how to blast beat really well, so we all started to play grindcore. And then we try and when I say we listen to music all the time, we did listen to music all the time. So we'd sit in Graham's room, listen to Steve Vai or all sorts of mad stuff, sax players, whatever it was, and go, I want to be able to get these kind of lines in, or maybe I'll try and understand how to do that a little bit better. So then then we go back down in the basement, and a blast beat wouldn't be followed with me just going on a couple of notes. It'd be some sweep picking, maybe some technical death metal stuff. And then that became, I don't just want to play a minor arpeggio. That just sounds like a shit necrophagist. I want to do something more, just a bit more sophisticated in my own head harmonically. So then that was, I'll try and play this jazz line over it in time. And then it was starting to sound a bit more like Dillinger. That's kind of what we wanted it to sound a bit more like, or Psyopus, who were around at the time, or I don't know, Into the Moat, I guess, were another band we were listening to. Daughters were another band we listened to a lot at the time. And there's another band, who am I forgetting? Ed Gein. I can't remember.
There's always one you forget.
I'm forgetting loads. and so Dillinger back then was, I guess, more like a benchmark. So I really want us to be sounding like that. There's only three of us, right? So it's not as if we can only do so much with three. So I was using loop pedals, trying to get these spacey sections with big super chords and weird. So my dog's just drinking insanely loud me next.
I thought there was a dog there somewhere.
He's just super.
What breed is it?
He's a bearded collie. He's he's 13. He's on his last legs. He's just
oh, bless.
Around. He also has got no space. He's eating ice out of his bowl. Edward, Ted. He's totally deaf. Sorry.
Oh, bless him. No worries. Always here for the dogs.
Yeah, but so I guess Dillinger was like a benchmark, and we had a few other bands who were the benchmarks, people we were trying to sound like. So the curtain went down on university. Everyone moved away. I started playing jazz. Blah blah. We got back to it in lockdown. Is when I got in touch with Reese and said, "Do you fancy doing this crazy band?" And Reese at the time was doing Corrupt Moral Altar with John Cook from Napalm Death, and
yeah, I do Napalm Death press.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Well, John's one of our friends. Reese is really good friends with John. In fact, he did a remix of one of our tracks on the first album, and he's going to do a remix of a single that's not on the new album, but that we're going to release as like a John Cook remix. Anyway, so I asked Reese to come and do this. So Reese said yeah, and then I asked Aaron McSporran, who's in Vipassi and Vervum and some other like death metal-y, technical death metal-y, proggy kind of bands. And then we kind of had like a rough band. So we had like three of us. We didn't have a drummer. So I said, right, on the album, let's just get some guest people in to do the guesting. So I'd written this stuff, but it was so hard. I just couldn't find anybody who could play it. Like
you'd written drums that were too hard for anyone to play.
That
sounds about right for metal.
Exactly, for guitarists, no doubt, absolutely. So it was like, right, they're going to have like the chops of a jazz drummer, but the aggression of a metal drummer. I don't know any of those, and I don't know anyone. I don't know any jazzers who would be up for it, who could blast beat, and I don't know any metal people who've got that other thing that I want on it, like the improvisatory element.
Yeah,
that's also tight. They know what a bar of 13/16 is and what to do with it and how to deal with it, instead of just blasting through it. So I wanted someone who could kind of be creative with it, and I thought, oh well, on the basis of the fact that I just can't find anybody, shall I just ask Billy Reimer from Dillinger to do it and see what he said? And he was like, oh yeah, I'm up for that. I'll do a couple of tracks. So I was like, oh right,
shit.
Right. Yeah. So Billy from Dillinger ended up on the opening track, Bus Station Roof, and on another one called Happiness. So then I was like, all right, well that deals with 2 of 11. I can't afford to get him because you've got to pay him. I've got to pay him. Obviously, he's like got to pay his thing. So I was like, all right, okay, I can maybe get a bit more money together. What about Bard Kolstad from Leprous? I'll give him a message. So Bard was like, oh yeah, I'll do a track for you. So Bard did one, and then I got Lee Fisher, who used to be in Psyopus and Fawn Limbs at the moment. He did a couple. A mate of mine, Simon Peter King, did some of the more straightforward ones. He's also an amazing guitarist. And then Cy Blakelock was the other drummer who used to be in Tangaroa, who were like a band from Leeds who we all used to love. And so it was a drummer with 5 albums. So we were just like, there's no way we can obviously gig this because we can't. How do we gig it? There's just no way of doing it.
Yeah.
So
you mentioned there that Billy, the drummer of Dillinger, was on your first album. Had you had any contact with him or anyone from Dillinger beforehand? Like, how did you go about reaching out and basically getting the drummer from your favorite band to be on your debut album?
Just cheeky, like I always do, just cheeky emails to people like, hiya, like, can you please give me this information for this person because I want this to do this, and they'd ignore it. I emailed you an hour ago, just wondering if you managed to pick up that email, and then eventually someone cracks and goes, fuck's it, right, there's his email address, just give him a shout. So
sounds like my everyday job.
yeah, it's so brutal. But my first option was, my first like bucket list one was Chris Penny, who was on Calculating Infinity. He was a drummer on that, but I could not find any way of I sent him messages, emails, other people who I thought might know him, and I couldn't get anyone. So I thought, well, all right, let's give up on that. Let's have a look at the other drummers Dillinger have had since, and then just sent a few emails around and thought, Billy is really. I watched some videos and I was like, he is properly amazing. Like, he'll do just as good a job as Chris Penny would. It's just I don't know him as much as I'm not as familiar with him as I am with the stuff that Chris. So anyway, he got back and said yeah, and that was all pretty quick. And yeah, he said this is some of the hardest music I've ever played in my life. Which was good.
Yeah. What an achievement.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, that was where all the drummers came in. But then I thought, we really need to like try and do this live. This can't just be a studio thing. We've got to do this live. So then came like the nightmare of trying to find now building a band, right? This is the whole, and it always has been the nightmare for Utopia because it's so hard. I So who did we have?
Drummers are just notorious to find anyway, no matter what genre of rock or metal you play. I've found
They're all in a million bands. And they've got all that gear, and it's like such a schlep being a drummer. There's such a lot to like moving your gear, everything, got rehearsals and like learning stuff. But so I was asking around and asking. I saw a couple of different people, and I was like, I wonder if they'd be appropriate. And then I had a couple of conversations going on with people, and then I got in touch with Mark Heron, who is a drummer in Oceansize.
Oh yeah.
And he was doing a band called Binge at the time. Binge is a different Binge. And Mark said, "Oh yeah, I'm really, really up for it. That sounds ace." And so I was going over to Manchester, and we were rehearsing, just me and him, just getting the tunes together. And he was all over it. He was doing really well. Then he totally smashed his rotator cuff in his shoulder.
Shit. Kind of need that.
Exactly. And was taking painkillers, and then basically just hospitalized himself trying to play the music. And that came 3 weeks before the tour that I'd planned. So I'd got 10 back-to-back dates from nowhere, from like, you don't know me, you don't know my band, but will you book us? Got 10 really good dates together. Got a band to do it together. Everyone was in, and then I had to cancel all of it because it's not like something I can just bring another drummer in on. It's like years worth of setting. So I had to cancel all that tour, which was just shit.
And when was that supposed to be?
That was the beginning of 2022. February 2022 is when we're supposed to do that. And I was just like, I just put so many hours into sorting the tour out because I do everything really.
There's always one member that does everything.
Yeah, I've sort of changed that a bit now, but yeah, you're right. So back then, I really was just doing everything. And Mark said, my shoulder's out. I'm not going to be able to do it. And I was like, well, I just can't wait. I'm sorry. Like, I'm going to have a look and see if I can find someone else who can do it. And he was like, yeah, totally cool. Totally understand. And then we went through a few other people who were like half in, half out, bit flaky, didn't do it, didn't commit. It was a lot of work to undertake. Until we found Jay, who we've got now, who's just ace. Jay was like not in any bands, totally up for it, could play everything. And now Jay's become like, I don't know, he produces the album, he does all the videos, he does all he sets up rehearsals. He's like, now everyone just loves Jay because he kind of takes it and makes things happen that we can't. It doesn't cost us any money because Jay just does it. Yes. And so Jay's in, and now on Friday this Friday is the first gig we'll have ever done.
This Friday.
This Friday in 4 days in Liverpool with Conan, and Nova Crow and Spitfire, and Crepitation. So yeah, that's the first one. God, whether someone will, I don't know, like fall off a building or something, I don't know. Something will happen to someone the day before. That seems to be like the curse of the band. But I think it'll be good. I think we're golden.
Yeah, try not to jinx yourself there.
I think I'm just permanently jinxed, regardless of whether I class myself as jinxed or not.
Well, look, if you always have low expectations, you'll never be disappointed.
Exactly. Oh man, I say this all the time. Yeah. Oh, think positive. You need to be more positive. Really. What if I've learnt negativity from constant negative things? Like, there's no way that I can even try to be positive. I'm just probably like dead entitled and think that everything I've. I don't know.
No, but this gig is going to be amazing. You've gone through, by the sounds of it, loads of shit to get here. Yeah. And now the wheels are turning. You've got your second album coming out imminently.
On the day.
So, on the day, there we go. Album release show then?
Yes, it is.
Nice.
Yeah. It's the album release show. And then we've got, just give me a sec. So we've got some other ones. Which ones do we have? Liverpool. We're supposed to have Newcastle, but we've rearranged that. Preston, Glasgow's to be rearranged. Guildford, Leeds, another Preston one, Sheffield, and then a possible one in Manchester on the 28th. But yeah, so we've got some stuff in. Every day is a blessing at the moment when it comes to So I think it'll be good. But a couple of weeks ago, we had our rehearsal with the other guitarist because there's 5 of them, but he wasn't like quite up to scratch yet. He'd not quite done it, so I've had to rearrange everything for one guitar, and that's hard. It's just really hard. So we're kind of doing it as a stripped back 4-piece, which still sounds actually really good when it's right, or really, really shit if it's wrong. So.
Well, I guess you're going to find out the hard way.
Oh, God. When it's so technical, it's almost like...
It's so technical that if you fuck up, no one else is going to know what the fuck you were supposed to be playing in the first place.
That's a good way of looking at it, yeah. That is a good way of looking at it. The way I look at it is it's so technical that if I fuck up, it will just sound terrible. I don't know, like, it's almost like... I'm trying to think of a good metaphor, but I'm sick, so I can't. It's just like if there's many images or rhythms that have all got to overlap in perfect symmetry, and I think if they're out, it just becomes like a blur of like a mess. So I think when it's tight, it's really effective. Like Dillinger, if you listen to Dillinger and you offset each of the instruments by like a tenth of a second, it would just sound like white noise. It's got to be like really.
That's one of the things I love about metal and rock as genres is like you can mix them with any other genre and it works perfectly. And the nice thing about rock and metal is like it's not supposed to be perfect. Like when you've got that rawness, that's what its appeal is. But when you've got something like technical death metal and jazz, which is not supposed to be rough and raw, like that has to be perfect. With something like tech metal, that is probably the 2 genres that you can't afford to be loosey-goosey with.
Yes, that's it. I think so. I mean, there's elements of it. There's like elements of it that are just blasty, almost like black metal-y type things, and or just heavy things that they still need to be tight. Don't get me wrong. It's just there's not as much. There's a bigger margin for error. So I don't know. I'm sure it'll be good. I was going to say something. I forgot what I was going to say. What was it?
It'll be great nonetheless. It'll be one of those things that once you rip the Band-Aid off, the plaster off, you'll be so happy you've got your first show out the way. And the good thing with these other shows you've got coming up, they're not back to back. So you don't have that. You've got like that moment of respite between each one that there's not as much pressure this time around.
We do actually. Oh, that's what I was going to say. No, you're right. It is nice to have them spaced out a bit. But that's what I was going to say. When we talk about metal being sort of can plug into so many different genres, it's like Sleep Token are a band that I just like. They blow me up. I love them. Some people hate them since they changed. I just think they're great. I really do think they're great. There's that song Reese was playing with me, Thread the Needle, I think it's called. Just like a total face melter for me. Absolutely kills me. It's just so beautiful and like weird, but it's clearly not just metal. It's clearly like loads of other stuff going on with it. Even like the super poppy stuff does not bother me in the slightest. I just think it is what it is, isn't it? If you like it, listen to it. If you don't listen to it. It's quite simple. I love Taylor Swift. I could listen to Taylor Swift all day. I could watch. Yeah.
I recently came back from Nashville for the first time, and there is so much country music, and they're obsessed with Taylor Swift over there. And by the end of it, I was like, I think I'm a Swiftie.
I'm totally a Swiftie. Oh, without a shadow. I've got 2 daughters, so we watched.
Oh, so you have to be a Swiftie.
Yeah. But I also love it. She did that great album with The National, or some guys from The National produced it. Oh God, what's it called? Folklore, I think it might be called. It's such a good album, just like beautiful. The thing is, if you say yes to different kinds of music and not say no, if you say yes to it, immediate like upgrade personally for your own creativity. If it's the minute you say no to stuff, and there's stuff that I don't like. right? There's stuff that I just don't get, and that I don't ever think I'll get. I'm just trying to think what that is.
I had exactly the same thing. Like me growing up, my all my music taste came from my dad, and my dad is a very like old school dad rocker. So I grew up on like AC/DC and Maiden and Guns N' Roses, and anything slightly heavy or slightly growly, he would just like immediately shut down. So for so long, I held those opinions as well.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until literally just a couple of years ago that I finally listened. Like Lamb of God was my gateway band. And I
Right.
finally listened to bands like Lamb of God and Slipknot for what it was, not wanting it to be something else.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, just the second I changed my mindset, I was like, fuck, I actually really like this and this is actually really good. And
Yeah.
now I work with fucking grindcore like Napalm Death. So
Yeah, there we go. Exactly. Oh well, Slipknot again. Like I should put them in my high school bands. That's another one. Yeah, what was the album? Was it the self-titled album with Eyeless on? Oh, yeah, I listened to that loads. That was, you know what? That might be the first really heavy band I listened to actually after like Green Day. I remember when they came out and there was like a featuring Kerrang. It was like, what the fuck? What? They're all wearing masks. That's mental. And there's 9 of them. And I was, oh, gotta listen to this. And it was on the sampler CDs. Oh yeah, sampler CDs. I remember I was going to say that. It was just like a really big thing. I guess it's playlist now, isn't it, on Spotify or whatever? But I found so many good bands on, and again, like a variety. Kerrang always used to have like a dead good variety on their CDs. They'd have like Slayer and Ash, but then like Slipknot and Pissing Razors. That was another band who I really used to like back then. Dog Fashion Disco, just weird stuff I would never. I'm so terrible at discovering new music these days. I'm just really.
I feel that.
Oh, I'm awful for it. Reese is great. Reese just always seems to have a new band on the go, but I don't know if it's time or when your time's precious and you're like, I've got this car journey to listen to something. I want to listen to something that I know, like Creedence Clearwater Revival. I could sing all the words until I get to work.
Yeah, I mean, this is another reason I love doing these interviews because my full-time job is in the music industry. So I'm either listening to the bands I'm working or I'm listening to what I call my comfort bands, like the bands I grew up on. So I find I don't have time to listen to new music that I'm not working or I know I already like. So it's why I like doing this because it gets me to listen to the already established bands that I never gave a chance to, i.e. Dillinger, and newer bands like yourself. So it's always like 2 birds with 1 stone every time I do an interview like this.
I guess it kind of fills in some like historical gaps for you, doesn't it? Musically, like, oh, thank God I can like, everyone's always banged on about them, right? Now I can like fill that, colour that little square in and that's done.
Literally. It's great. But I'm going back to Dillinger. Besides the usual suspects and their top tracks on Spotify, what other hidden gems that people might not be familiar with would you recommend?
From Dillinger, I don't know. The thing is, I think Dillinger fans are really massively into Dillinger, so they probably all know all of Dillinger stuff really well because they're that kind of band. But I guess if you were to kind of go off the beaten track a bit, the Mullet Burden from Under the Running Board, I think is good. The very first album, the opening track, Proceed with Caution, I think, off the very first album is cool. When Good Dogs Do Bad Things from the Mike Patton split.
And they're so good at song titles as well.
Yeah. Oh, man, aren't they? There's some great... And lyrics, I just think the lyrics are ace.
Oh, that's a question I had. So... myself, when I listen to music, lyrics are usually the first thing I hear. And one of the lyrics you mentioned earlier from Good Dogs Do Bad Things, shit like that, I love. Like I get the same reaction you would get when you heard that. So what is your favorite Dillinger lyric?
That one. Oh,
yeah.
That whole verse. He's just ace. It's just ace. I just love that. It's such a profound lyric. In this crowded place, you could swing a cat, not even hit a soul, just a lonely vacuum of human black holes. It's like, who writes that? It's just amazing.
That is poetry.
It's so nice. It really does. I struggle to recite it all the way to the end. It just absolutely kills me. But I like writing lyrics. I like to try and write lyrics like that, or things that are a bit. I can't write lyrics like that, but they're always a bit more abstract, the ones that I write, and a bit harder to kind of make any sense of. But they're just mashups of, like, I don't know, like bipolar and just reading philosophy books and stuff, and art and whatever. I'm just kind of observing in my own mind or about my own life. It's all pretty fucking narcissistic, I suppose.
But that's the great thing about music, is you write things. You can either write things from your own perspective, or someone else's, or you can make shit up. And most of the time with music, when you write from the perspective of yourself, it resonates with other people who have the same mindset.
Yeah, I think if you can be as honest as possible and not contrived, I would hate to ever be accused of anything that I do as being contrived, like trying too hard to be something, because that's not at all what it is. What I'm trying to do as hard as I can is to express, like, if you like hold a piece of paper on a tree and do like a pencil rubbing over the paper, you get the bark, you get that. That's kind of what I'm trying to do with music of my own brain, is to kind of give like an actual picture of what it's like sometimes in there. And the lyrics hold some of that, and the music obviously is like the color on all that. And so when I'm very, very aware that Utopia is not for everybody, but it's not supposed to be. I think as soon as you start writing for anybody other than yourself, you probably become more financially viable, right? Because if you aim to hit a target audience, I'm just aiming to make the album, to complete an album and go, right, there's an album. Could somebody please just take it away and do something with it? That was great about the first, because APF signed us, so we're on APF Records. And then the second album, I just think no one would have us. It doesn't fit into anything. It's too extreme for some labels. It's not like, it just doesn't have, and also we're not like properly established yet, really. We're only just starting to gig after like 3 years. So I think that's a bit of a put off, but I think musically it's really, I don't know, it's definitely got its audience. There's no doubt about it. That I am sure of. It's definitely got its audience. It's just trying to get to them somehow. And that's where I'm shit. I'm just terrible. Social media, terrible. Like, generally getting out there, I just can't do it. Aaron's really good at it, so he does a lot more than I do. But I'm just hoping that when we get out there and start to gig, that's when we can actually present it to people properly.
Yeah, of course.
And obviously with like festivals, I think we'd be perfect at something like Art Tangent, but that's gone for this year. We can't get in. I just think it's a no-brainer. We'd just go down really well there, I think. So I'm hoping that maybe next year.
It's a shame that TechFest stopped as well, but I think there's a new spin-off that is basically TechFest, but not TechFest.
Okay.
That is also started, so I would recommend looking into that.
Yeah, I'll have a look at that.
But speaking of live shows and gigging, I've seen some fucking wild live footage of Dillinger. Have you ever managed to see them in a live setting?
Yeah, we saw them on the, I think it was on the Miss Machine tour in 2005, 6 maybe. Is it later than that? No, we were still in uni. So there was me and Reese and a mate of mine, Ben Green, who lived in Nottingham at the time. We all went down to Nottingham for Preston. Well, me and Reese went down to Nottingham. I remember we got the bus. We got the bus to the venue, but the bus didn't stop where we needed it to, and we opened the fire exit and just all jumped out of the fire exit of the bus and ran across like a dual carriageway. Really.
Oh my God.
But I remember that was so exciting. That was when live music for me was so exciting. Like, oh, we were so pumped to see that gig. It was really, really ace. And it was just amazing. We were right at the front, right at the barriers, right in at the straight there. And they just liked the show, and the whole band, well, like both guitarists, I think, or one of the guitarists and the singer were in the audience, like within. They opened with Sugar Coated Sour, I think, the first track from Calculated Infinite. It was just like, oh, fucking hell, we are. This is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was such a good gig. And there was that one, and not long after or before, I can't remember, we saw Converge in Leeds, and that was a similar experience of like just really, there was an atmosphere, you know, and when they started, it was so brutal. Like,
yeah. When you saw Dillinger, did you have any expectations going into it? Did you know what to expect, or were you just absolutely thrown in at the deep end?
I think they could have missed every note and it was still would have been amazing, to be honest. It didn't really matter. It was almost like I'd enjoyed the gig before it even started. I just knew.
You were just happy to be there.
Just happy to be there, yeah. I remember that, yeah. And I remember I was really smashed. And I think, yeah, Ben Ryman was the guitarist with it in merch stand. They said, Ben, headbutt me. He was like, just have some self-respect, man. And I was like, shut up, Ben. I was like, I look back at that now and just think, God, what was like behind his eyes? He must have just saw this idiot go. But he's probably like tired from touring and just like, oh, just fuck off. Yeah.
I really hope on Friday when you finish your show and you're stood at the merch stand that someone comes up to you and they're like, John, headbutt me. And then you will know how you felt when you asked that.
I'll probably just do it just to save them the embarrassment of me telling them that they need to have some self-respect. I think on that gig as well, it was Beecher was supporting, and I think they just released Breaking the Fourth Wall. Oh, that was great. Beecher were awesome. They've kind of gone now, but that album was dead good. Kind of mathy, but proggy. Not as crazy as Dillinger, but just really a really good album. Who else? There was Beecher. No, I can't remember.
Was that the only time you've seen them live, or have you seen them more since then?
That's the only time I've ever seen them live.
Because I think I read somewhere that they're reuniting for some one-off shows this year in June. Unfortunately, in the US of A. Have you thought about going to see them for those?
Oh, it'd be nice, wouldn't it? I'm just like, there's no way I could justify $1,000 to go and see, you know, however much it'd be to go and over there and actually do it. I'd like to. I mean, I don't do great in live, like busy places these days.
Oh, I feel that.
I really can't. It just, the joy of being in those environments is kind of gone right off the bat. In fact, I went to see my mate Jim, who plays bass in Pigs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, me and Jim went to see Obituary in Newcastle, and that was great. I love Jim, and we just sort of stood there and watched him, and I got pissed, and it was great. And I really enjoyed that. I think it's because I had he just said, you fancy coming to watch Obituary? And I was like, can't say I'm a massive Obituary fan, but yeah, let's do it. And it was dead good, really enjoyed it. So that was enjoyable. But I don't know, I don't get excited for much anymore. It sounds horrible. I just really don't get excited for anything.
No, I get that. I'm the same, like, because I go to so many gigs for my job and to like go and show face and support the bands that I'm working with. Most of the time, I'm excited for it because it would have been on an album cycle that I've worked, and I love seeing songs from an album that I've worked played live.
Yeah.
But there's the odd occasion where, like, you know, it's going to happen. If I go to like 100 gigs in a year, I'm not going to be 100% on every single one of those days. So on the days where I'm not particularly feeling very sociable, or I'm feeling like quite anxious, just stand at the back, show face. Sometimes I might not even go say hi to the band afterwards. I'll just like drop them an email afterwards being like, good show, sorry I didn't stick around. And that's it.
Backdoor boogie, I think it's called, when you just like at parties where you just go. Yeah, I could try and say bye, but I think that might be met with some resistance. Like people might tell me, "Oh, what you got?"
Yeah, you don't want to risk the. Why are you leaving so soon?
Yeah, I'll just go. But I mean, it's not just. I mean, me and Laura went to watch Devin Townsend. In fact, we went to watch Devin Townsend at Albert Hall in Manchester, and just sat in the top circle. This was the time not the last time, the one before that he was touring, and that was amazing. That was really.
Again, I love a seat at shows now.
Oh, yeah, totally. We sat down and I was just like, good. But that was ace. It was like it's a really nice. It was long. It was just enjoyable. It was like loads of variety. It was dead good. It was like I don't know. It was just good. I've done so many gigs and been toured so much with various different things that it feels like a bit of a busman's holiday. It feels like it doesn't feel. Those environments don't feel like.
Don't feel special anymore.
Exactly. I think. Do you know what? I think it will on Friday because we've worked really hard. But then we're playing again. That's like horribly narcissistic. That is the thing that. But it's only because it's something that we've done that's kind of coming to fruition.
Yeah, these are the fruits of your labor.
Indeed, or vegetables. We'll see how it.
Hey, look, people like vegetables too.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, but no. I've only seen Dillinger once, and it was really good.
Well, I'm glad that at least you saw them at such a quintessential point, not in just like your life getting into music, but also like in their discography as well. Like in that exact time after Calculating Infinity and Miss Machine, it's always like the earlier stuff where a band is usually like at their most perfect. But of those 6 albums that they've got, how would you rank them?
God, do you know what? I'm not even sure I could tell you what all 6 were. And this is like the band who I've cited as the most influential. Let me find them, and I can try and put them in kind of.
I've got them written here in front of me. Obviously, there's Calculating Infinity, Miss Machine, Ironworks, Option Paralysis, One of Us is the Killer, and most recently, Dissociation, 2016.
Okay, I think I have heard all those. There's some that I've listened to a lot more. All right, well, obviously, Calculating Infinity goes at the top for me, followed by One of Us is the Killer, I think. But then, there's loads of people who I know who said Dissociation is amazing. Loads of people who say Option Paralysis is amazing. So I'm coming at this. I just have to say Calculating Infinity, and then I've kind of listened a bit to the rest of them, but I couldn't really categorize them that well. So like I say, I get obsessed. Like the reason I've only seen them one time is because at that point in my life, that's really all I was listening to. And then when I started listening to loads of jazz, that's all I was listening to. And we all left uni, so all my network of people there, we all split up. So then I became friends with loads of jazzers, and we just got to jazz gigs, and that's all for a long time, So I'm only kind of coming back into this now. It's the same with Faith No More. I could probably give you a better list of Faith No More actually than probably even Green Day, but yeah, I don't know. Calculating Infinity number 1. One of Us is a Killer number 2. Option Paralysis, Dissociation. What's the other ones?
Ironworks and Miss Machine.
Oh, Miss Machine, then Ironworks.
Nice. So if people were going to go and check out Dillinger, who hadn't heard them before but were interested, like myself, that's the order you would recommend.
Yeah, and don't go on my recommendation. I mean, if you'd never heard him before, depending on what kind of music you'd like, it depends who asked. If you asked me, I might say, oh well, maybe if when you didn't like growling music, I'd probably say maybe one of the singier ones. But if you really like super aggressive stuff, then probably Calculate Infinity, because there's no singing. It's just pure horrible.
You got to tailor your answer to whoever you're answering.
Yes. And even then, it probably just comes out as Calculate Infinity every time, because I don't know the other albums that well. So that's the only one I'm qualified to really give an opinion on.
When you were into them in your college days and all that kind of thing, were you ever a fan of band merch? Did you own any t-shirts by them?
Yeah, and it was dead exciting. I think we had, the thing is, the guys we lived with recently, we'd buy merch and it'd just get nicked immediately from whoever was in the next bedroom, or you'd swap. I'd borrow Reese's Mars Volta t-shirt if he could borrow my Dillinger hoodie, and then, or he'd borrow my Agoraphobic Nosebleed t-shirt if I could borrow his Converge t-shirt or whatever. So we'd give the illusion that we had loads of t-shirts, but we just had loads of t-shirts between us. So.
It's like swapping Pokemon cards, but at college level.
yeah. And I think, where did we used to buy them from? We get them online, I think we could get them online then. It'd take ages to come.
Yeah, because I remember, so where I grew up in Jersey, we used to have a HMV, but that's been gone for a very long time now. But when I first started buying band shirts, it was always in HMV. But I can't remember ever seeing anything like Dillinger or Converge in somewhere like HMV. So
there wasn't. I don't think there was. I played in that theatre in Jersey. There's a theatre that's like on a square. It's like on a square, or is there a bit of a square or car park or something out the front? And there's some restaurants down the side. It's a big white. Is it a big white one? And I think it's on like chairs on the floor. I can't remember what it's called.
There's like one venue in Jersey, and it's a fort.
Maybe. Oh, really? Am I thinking of Jersey? Definitely played in Jersey. Can't remember what it was called.
Depends when it was. Like, one of the reasons I left Jersey is because there's like no music scene there at all. There's much more of one now than when I was growing up, but I never went to any gigs in Jersey when I was growing up.
Where do you live now?
London.
Oh, yeah.
Made the big move, made the big jump.
Very good. Yeah, plenty of action. Well, loads of bands there then, isn't there? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So how many Dillinger t-shirts did you have? Do you remember which one it was?
I think we had like a dead simple calculating infinity one. And do you know what? I think the hoodie might have been an Irony is a Dead Scene one. It had like an orange logo. I have dreams about it sometimes. It had like an orange logo. It might have been under the running board, or I'll have to ask Reese. But it's too late by then. I can't remember. I can just about remember what it looked like.
I love that you have dreams about it sometimes. What do those dreams entail?
Just me wearing it or someone wearing it. I can't remember having a dream about it and then going. And then, do you know, it was like one of those dreams where I look at it and go, yeah, I recognise that hoodie, but it didn't look, that's not what it looked like. That's not what the logo was on it. It was something different. It's a weird, stupid, I don't know.
I love that.
I think we're only 2 or 3 tunes.
I have one more question for you before we wrap this up, and I'll let you get on with the rest of your evening. Since Dillinger have disbanded, have you listened to any of the members' other projects? I know that Better Lovers is a quite recent project that has come about in recent years. What do you think of their other side stuff?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that Dillinger is like greater than the sum of its parts, if that makes sense. Just think that they had like a particularly amazing thing. Better Lovers, yeah, I've heard a bit of it, not massively into it, but again, don't have to be into everything. It just doesn't do it for me. A lot of early Every Time I Die was great. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Late stuff, not so much. I don't know. It's hard. Do you know what? If Better Lovers were around back then,
mm-hmm.
I probably love them. Do you know what I mean? And probably would still love them now. I think it's just at the time of your life that you hit some bands, you kind of like, yeah, I've sort of heard this. I've sort of heard this a few times before.
Yeah.
Doesn't feel like super original, but it's quite hard to find bands that are super. I think Sleep Token are pretty original actually, but Yeah, it's kind of hard to find. I mean, obviously there will be loads out there, but I'm just, like I said before, I'm just terrible at finding new music. What was the one that Reese said? The Breath. They were good. But yeah, no. I mean, I kind of like Dillinger just remain in this place in the past for me that I look back at and go, that was a really important time that for me musically, and that's kind of where it has stayed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know? And I've still listened to it from time to time, but I've not felt the need to listen to it all the time or very much at all. I've not felt, I just remember it. I listen to it so much that I can just remember the whole album, in my head, and I enjoy listening to it. Sometimes I've just, I'm kind of sort of let them go a little bit. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know the music that I listen to. I don't really. I'm so bad, really. I hardly ever listen to music. I think it's just because I'm thinking about it a lot or I'm writing it. I just don't find the time. That's not even true. Oh, I'll tell you what I did listen to the other day. 5 Leaves Left, the Nick Drake album.
Okay.
It's just like really, obviously really depressing, dark, and like committed suicide not long after he did it, and there's like loads of really dark themes in there. There's a song called Riverman. If you've never heard, if you want beautiful lyrics and you want to just like pummel you, go and have a listen to Riverman. That is just so, I think it's about him, his kind of premonition of him,
right?
Yeah,
you gotta be in a certain mindset to listen to music like that.
yeah, that was last night. But I only wanted to listen to that, and I didn't listen to the whole album on my phone, just sitting with my phone. But then I didn't put any headphones in. I just sat and listened to the whole thing.
Gotta love those iPhone speakers.
Absolutely. Oh, it's a Google Pixel, you see.
Oh, I hope they've got better speakers than iPhones. Anyway, thank you so much for this interview. I hope you had a great time fanboying over Dillinger, and I'm gonna let you get back to your evening.
Thank you very much. Thanks for chatting to me, and all the best.
Thank you for listening to I'm Your Biggest Fan. If you enjoyed what you heard, please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment, send it to your nan in the post. Every little helps. You can follow us everywhere at biggestfan_pod. Follow me everywhere at Wrathchild_jazz. Noizze at Noizze UK on everything. Noizze Podcast Network at Noizze Podcast Network on everything. And Satanic Tico at Satanic Tico and at Pitch Black North. If you have a band member in mind that you think would be perfect for this podcast, perfect for this topic of conversation, or maybe you are the band member and you're the super fan, drop us a comment, drop us an email. All other info can be found below in the description. And thanks again for listening. We'll catch you soon.